metaphysicians greet each other in the morning every day.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining Jason and I today in the Meta Cafe for your daily astrology, human design, and tarot energy report. So Jason's having a trying morning, so we're going to drink to Jason. Jason,
L'chaim.
here's to you. Yeah, whatever that means. L'chaim, laho, lahi. So we have a lot to get to today, and
hit me.
It's been an extraordinary evening. First of all, I woke up this morning because I was feeling impacts, multiple impacts, as in, I don't know what they were. They were energetic, but I could almost hear them and feel like the repercussion or the percussion of whatever it was that was happening out there in the world.
Well, I remember your show, you were discussing the, impacted Uranus.
I'm not sure if this was about Uranus or if what planet's at play here. I have a feeling I do know, and I have a feeling it's about Mercury's move yesterday into Scorpio and its conjunction today with Jupiter. And anytime you have these two planets coming together, what we get is sort of a hodgepodge of communication, things relegated to the mind, like exploding the mind. An energy of foresight, like being able to see further down into the future than we can usually see. Or what's that saying? The handwriting is on the wall kind of feeling. And, there has been, and you guys heard it on Living Astrology First, that things were going to be revealed as we got into the fall. Here we are in the fall, and the revelations are coming in watershed moments about the culture in this country of sexual abuse, sexual abusing women, abusing power, particularly the masculine energy, abusing power by bending the feminine to their will in order to get sex or whatever it is that they're after. Because it's rarely about sex. It's usually about power and about empowering themselves at the expense of the weaker individual. And
why are you bullshitting everyone? It's not about that. It's about little dick syndrome. When you have a little dick, that's how you act. Do you understand? He's a little dick Jew. Now, half of my friends are Jews, so they'll understand me.
Little dick syndrome. Okay.
That comes from somebody not telling you you're okay. I mean, his parents should be the ones. Well,
it's just an interesting thing, a phenomenon to watch because, we are living astrology. And, when I named my business that, there was no mistake. It was that we are actually live, living in the sense of the word being a verb as opposed to an adjective, living astrology. And here we have it, right, folks? Months ago, I said secrets being revealed. And here we've had this watershed of secrets being revealed. And at first, was touching Hollywood. And now it's moved into the sports world. And my guess, next, it moves into corporate America.
No, I was going to go with political. I mean, have we yet seen Donald Trump's tax returns? Have we yet?
No. So lots of things happening out there being communicated to us in a big way. And, then on top of that, we have some really other interesting things going on. The other night, John McCain, who is the senior senator from Arizona, ran for president a couple of different times, was nominated or won the Liberty Medal from the National Constitution Center. And he came out with a speech that, I don't know if you've seen it, Jason, but it's all over the
Isn't he a gentleman that was one of our abducted? He was tortured. Am I correct?
Yeah, in Vietnam, I think it was Vietnam or Korea. He was abducted and tortured. He was a POW, a prisoner of war, and ended up, being released, I think, at the end of the war or something like that. So he comes home a hero. But I'm going to read you guys bits of his speech because I think it really spells out what's going on. And you have to remember, this is a man that for most of his life has been a politician. So it's interesting to see this energy coming out of politics. And it's this. The senator derided half-baked, spurious nationalism. McCain also reminded us who we are as a people and perhaps more importantly, who we were. Human design people, that's gate 44, right? Bridging the, taking the best of the past and making a bridge and building it into the future. And he remembered America as the land of the immigrant's dream, the land with the storied past forgotten in the rush to the imagined future. America has always been the beacon of democracy and the beacon of love and acceptance of people coming from other cultures and other countries. And not that they were always greeted with, open arms and, love and light, because we've had the Irish that were derided. We've had the Italians that were derided. We've had the Oriental, the Chinese. We do have sort of a history of watching immigrants come into this country and then have to struggle through various types of problems as they try to get settled and acclimated in this new country. And he goes on to say, "We have done great good in the world," he said. "That leadership has had its costs, but we have become incomparably powerful and wealthy as we did." And here's the whole hub of everything: leadership, right? This country has always been a beacon of leadership. So McCain charged us all to continue leading, and that means being willing to set aside our partisan bickering, and that means being willing to set aside our fear. I'm getting ready to do a podcast with a really dear friend of mine who's living in Switzerland right now, and we're going to be talking about fear and where fear is in the human design and how we work through fear, because that is the thing keeping us down. And he goes on to say, Democrats fear Republicans and vice versa. Christians fear Muslims. Atheists fear Christians. We all fear getting killed by terrorist refugees, even though we have far greater chance of being struck by lightning. Gun owners fear having their firearms taken away. More than half of us are afraid of Trump care. And according to this year's Chapman University survey of American fears, just about as many of us are afraid of war with North Korea as we are of climate change. Russian hacking, Chinese expansion in the South China Sea, illegal immigrants stealing our jobs. We're not just a nation divided, we've become a nation afraid. It's equal parts paranoid and paralyzing. There are real threats and challenges out there, to be sure, but shame on us for letting them rip us apart anyway. Whatever happened to the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, or let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. What happened to the country that beat the Kaiser and the Fuhrer, that wrestled its way through the Great Depression and gritted through the Dust Bowl, that conquered polio, put a man on the moon, and pulled together after the attacks on 9/11? I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about what this man so poignantly put together in words for us. And I think it draws the line about what's happened here in this nation, what's happened in this world, is that fear has this stranglehold on us, and it's everywhere, and it's palpable, and it's time to make that change. And I bring all of this up today because we're in the shadow of a new moon, right? The new moon bringing us possibilities. That new moon in the latter degrees of Libra, calling us on to a more fairly balanced, equanimity-based economy, better relationships, diplomacy and tact being used in our relationships, not only with one another, but with the greater world and with the nations of the world. And, I think we face a choice point, Jason, today, right here today. I mean, the line in the sand is drawn. Do we continue on with fear and the fear of everything? Or do we go past that? Do we feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Do we go on to heal the world? Do we go on to build relationships, to do the work we're here individually called to do, et cetera, et cetera? Or are we going to succumb to fear and keep, in the words of Don Quixote, tilting at windmills, right? And every one of those windmills being a soldier or a fear or something that's out to get us or out to take our toys away. So we have a choice point in front of us, and it's a very powerful one. And, the Galactic Center is also involved in this particular new moon. And the new moon, by the way, everybody, occurs tomorrow. And the reason I'm bringing this up today is because there's a lot of juiciness around the new moon. So we'll talk more about it tomorrow too. It occurs at 12:12 p.m. Pacific time, which makes it 3:12 p.m. East Coast time tomorrow. So be aware, new things are coming, but I think what John McCain so eloquently puts here is that the fear is in the way. So let's push the fear out and allow some healing to take place and shine our lights. Off soapbox, your turn. You look like Rocky Balboa, like you're getting ready to go into the boxing ring.
Yeah, Adrian! I was just digesting and listening to what you had to say. I was listening to the man's words. My first thoughts were, wow, well spoke. And psychically, I was thinking, but what if? What if this is the nature of lives and societies? Seems to me that this is normalcy right here in this zone. Over here is a society that prospers and is heralding all of the tenets of good metaphysics. And then over here we have Kakadudu. You know,
Cockadoodle-doo-doo?
you Kakadudu over here, you know that? Now, what I know about physics, my dear, is that if something swung out to here, it's not going to immediately go back into here when it releases. If I've gotten this entropy built up, I'm going to have to swing out to here for a minute. It's an uncomfortable, pupukaka, shitty place. But then I will come back to normalcy.
Yes.
I thought to myself, what if we need to be doing this? What if we've become a bunch of self-entitled, hyper-intellectualized, inorganic? I can keep going. Now, the reason I have this snobbish attitude against Americans is because my mother was first-generation Greek here. And, of course, she had all that ancient Greek shit in her head thinking that she was, Aphrodite. I had some news for her. In the 60s, economy collapsed and then again. But I digress. I was able to look at the world through a European's eyes. To somebody who had been through... 2 wars, no more. The Turkish War, I can keep going. Had Germans hold guns to her head. Killed her best friend in front of her. My mother was a quick, steady little Greek girl. She spoke German early. She figured it out. So I'm thinking about all of these things, all of these atrocities. I'm thinking about life and its cycles while you're speaking. Look, all this shit wouldn't be going on, Janet, in the ether, in the stars, if we weren't supposed to be all going through some stuff.
Well, yeah, you're right, Jason. But going through stuff does not mean that it has to be as horrible as it is, because in human design, it's very clear that the fear center is evolving out of the human design. And the fear center initially was there to keep us safe, right? Fight or flight serves its purpose. If you hear a gunshot, the first thing you're going to do is drop to the ground or find shelter. I mean, that is fear used in a positive way. But most of the fears that we experience on a day-to-day basis are false evidence appearing real, the acronym for fear, right? Where we're afraid of, what are the Muslims going to come and they're going to take over our country? I mean, or are we so afraid of having healthy Americans that we have to make it impossible for them to get health care? Are we so afraid of being poor? Is that 1% of America holding the billions of dollars? Are they so fucking afraid of losing those dollars that they want to legislate protections for themselves? I mean, to me, fear has gone awry. And it is no longer useful. It is no longer serving us. And so we have to, the only people that have the power to change it are us. You're watching this #MeToo thing going on. I don't know if you noticed that. It's all over Facebook and Twitter. Of course, it began with, I cannot remember her name, but Alyssa Milano picked up this idea of women wondering how many women out there had been abused or molested or raped, and started this movement about hashtag Me Too. And
Oh, wow.
so watching yesterday's feed on Twitter and Facebook was amazing, right? As every women that I would never have thought, that this had touched their lives were pound Me Too. And I just, there's something here about, number one, the healing for the women involved, finally getting a voice and being heard, and also
Amen.
being empowered to say this is wrong, right? This is not how we should operate. That there's something wrong when men, bless their hearts, are able to control women by sex. There's something way wrong with that, and it's time to change that. But a lot of that was born out of the fear women had of not being able to get roles or get parts or get ahead without giving up that basic right to dignity that that we have. And because, and I'm not saying that, that kind of sexual abuse doesn't apply to men in some respects too. Obviously, we saw in the Catholic Church a lot of boys and young men being diddled with.
I was in that whole world for about 10 minutes, and I can tell you there are just as many gay casting agents that, I can tell you myself, friends that have sucked dick just to get a part, and there was no problem because they knew the agent would be like, oh, cool. So, while I appreciate the focus on women, absolutely, I was listening to what you had to say about fear. I want to go back a second, because from the age of 25 on, I've dealt with major anxietal issues, and I've had to work with world specialists about fear. I think it was an interesting training ground for me, because every so often I was on stage in front of hundreds of people singing opera. You want to talk about some fear? I knew opera singers that could keep buckets on both sides of the wings of the stage, so that they could just walk over and promptly empty their stomach into it because nerves were too much. I know great sopranos, but they faced their fear. They went on stage. I went on stage. There were times when it was otherworldly, like I'm watching myself from above going, what the hell am I doing up here?
They're all looking at me.
Fear must have a reason. I know that with respects to the two vital forces, the one vital force being the need to preserve the species, as opposed to the need to preserving the spirit, which you remember from my show. We will always have in our DNA encoding, us men, us pigs, fuck. It's a beacon that goes out constantly. Even when I'm not thinking about sex, I am thinking about sex. I try to make people understand this. It is a drive. And the ones that say, well, I don't really have bullshit. They're thinking about sex. It's coming out sideways. Now, does that mean you have to be the number 4 card and run amok? No. Doesn't. It does mean, however, that we respect ourselves for being human. That, I think, is important. Instead of working against this thing, understanding how to work with this thing, this fear, so that it doesn't manifest in a way like this that's just repulsive.
Well, and I think it speaks to the first thing that we have to do is recognize that it is fear, right? That if this isn't about love, then it's about fear. Those are the two basic energies, love or fear, and then anything else lining up below those. So when we're dealing with fear, recognize it for what it is, call it out, right? When you're not doing something that you want to do, that's because there's a fear, right? When we're looking at, how many, it's just amazing to me how many women out there have kept their mouths shut for how many decades as this culture of abuse was going on. out of fear, right? Fear they wouldn't get the parts. Fear this little girl, this little tiny gymnast, this morning comes out with this terrible story about how she was treated by the team doctor. And, as a kid, believing that this man who had 30 years experience as a doctor was doing things to her that were appropriate. So it's amazing to me the scope of this whole problem is just amazing to me. But it's out in the open now. Jupiter and Mercury both in Scorpio. They are playing this game full out because this is all, Scorpio is a sign that rules sex, sexuality, every taboo that you can imagine. And the whole idea of transformation, right? Letting go of the past and transforming. We see this playing out there in the world in a big way right now. And that's why I say living astrology, because we're watching it unfold right in front of us every day. And I dare say that there'd be more coming, right? Because we still have a lot of fear and a lot of stuff to be revealed. So anyway, feel the fear. My teacher, Karen Curry Parker, she always used to say, in the nature of the spleen is to feel the fear and go past it and do it anyways. So you as an opera singer, feel that fear, but go out there and sing your heart out anyway. And that's how fear dissipates. And that's how we overcome the challenges of fear in our society, is that, someone has to make the first move and say, okay, fear be damned. Let's sit down and have a conversation about how not to nuclearize the whole world, right? Let's have a conversation about how we can provide health care that's, fiscally responsible and takes care of our people. If we don't make those moves, we won't go anywhere. We'll stay succumbing to fear. Ooh, I see the Lovers.
So while you were
chatting,
soapboxing, I picked a card. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I said, let me pick another card today. I picked a second card. Folks, I can't make this up. You saw me do it while she was chatting.
So we have the Lovers card. The girl on girl, is it? Or
girl on girl action, baby.
Girl on girl and boy and girl.
Yeah.
Love it. And what are we talking about with the Lovers cards, Jason?
Many things, but in particular, what speaks up to me so that we don't take up 9 hours is that there is very much like the batter of Sagittarius with that bow of his that you always talk to me about.
The archer pointing.
What is he doing with that bow? What is he doing with the bow?
He's got his arrow pointed at the galactic center, the center of our solar system.
Yep. The cherubim here in these cards do not portray the original Egyptian symbology of an archer, of a cherub who is directing his arrow towards the heart of man. The original name of that card is The Parting of the Ways. Which decision are we going to make?
Oh, Crossroads, maybe?
That's exactly the name of the card, remember?
Yes, I do.
Not with the wheel. With the wheel, you're going forward because the two things are pulling in opposite directions. So that means the straight line point goes forward. This is the parting of the ways in the truest archaic description. We have a choice. This arrow is going straight to our heart. We're going to choose one of two things. Which is it going to be?
Love.
I don't have that answer.
Love, fear.
Yeah.
I think fear's been,
all the cards said today was to reiterate twice. In the same card, twice.
Love.
It truly is a choice. Something else I was thinking, while you were talking was, number one, I'm sad, and I understand, but I'm sad we have not heard one peep from our dearly beloved and missed Mr. Obama. I kept thinking the only times in my life when I had the memory of a president who could talk us down from fear was when I was very young. I remember a very charismatic Ronald Reagan thinking this man was handsome, this man was well-spoken, he knew how the hell to look at an audience, like John Wayne. Bill Clinton made me feel safe. And during the worst economic crisis we've ever seen, second only to the Great Depression, Barack Obama, he calmed us the fuck down. And to this day, I think, interesting that we're not hearing a thing from him. Okay, I can understand a couple months, but.
But you know, by your own admission, you don't really watch the news, and he has weighed in on a lot of things. He's a Twitterer, and so he does put messages out there, but you have to appreciate his position as he's walking a fine line, because he's also being battered by Trump in the news every day. So
crazy.
It is crazy. It's a crazy world.
That being said, tonight I'm continuing my moon, my big fat hairy moon card. We have special monthly edition of Christy's Corner. So my friend Christy Clark will be coming on, the aromatherapy specialist. She will be talking to us about Halloween specials and about the different fragrances of the thing. I made yummy apple crisp with my nephew last night. He's in culinary school and stuff now. They've handpicked him in high school.
Nice.
So we've been having fun. So that we're going to talk about some of the holiday season fragrances. And do you, Madam Wazzle, know about your tomorrow show? Or you?
I'm waffling a bit. Waffling. Because I think I need to clean up the Uranus show that we did last week. I want to spin a couple things in a more positive light, not because I need to spin it, but because I think, we run out of time in our 1 hour show when I'm presenting this, big information. And I'm not sure I got to the beauty of what will happen with this kind of transit coming up. So I think we'll go back and we'll be revisiting Uranus. And
well, as your cohort and producer, I can tell you that I walked away thinking, well, I should buy the razors now and go in this direction.
No need to do that. No need to do that.
I think people would like to hear your, what happens when it doesn't go to shit.
Yeah.
Scenario.
Well, it's definitely going to go. Something is going to go. But what do we do about that? And, what's the purpose? I think we can endure anything if we know that there's, something better coming at the end of that. And that's the point that I want to make, is that, we've been in this long-term transformation, coming from big cycles of time coming to an end and new cycles of time starting. And, what do we want to do with it? How do we want to fill it? And that, that's the interesting thing that I want to talk to people about, is how are we going to live our lives in the midst of chaos and still get where we want to be, because evolutionarily we are headed for a golden age. It may not happen in this lifetime for you and me, but certainly that is where we're headed. And, history will look back upon this time and see that the decisions we made either ushered in that new age faster, or stalled it and made it harder than it has to be. But it's inexorably moving closer to us. It's just hard to see that through the mist of fear that we are engulfed in at the moment. So I think that's exactly what we'll talk about tomorrow night. How can I show you that this is
how
right?
Can you quell these fears?
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for joining us this morning in the Daily Energy Report, and we'll be here tomorrow. We'll talk more about the new moon and maybe I'll have a coalesced idea of what I'm actually going to talk about tomorrow on my show. Tune in tonight to Titillating Tarot at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. East Coast time. And for now, have a great day. See you all later. Bye.